The quantum teleportation gate hummed as it stabilized, the familiar tingling sensation washing over Ambassador Elena Chen's skin. She stepped through onto the polished obsidian floor of the Galactic Council station, her diplomatic uniform, designed to appear non-threatening, suddenly feeling inadequate against the wave of silence that crashed through the vast reception hall. 3,000 alien delegates froze mid-conversation. A Melnarian diplomat's bioluminescent crests flared brilliant crimson. 2 Vorax representatives chittered urgently into communication devices. A child-sized, 6-limbed Phlox attendant dropped a tray of iridescent beverages that shattered with a crystalline ring that echoed through the cavernous space. Deathworlder, the whisper rippled through translation frequencies, some pitching high enough to make Elena's enhanced eardrums ache. Commander Jackson materialized behind her, his muscular frame tensing as his hand instinctively moved toward the molecular disruptor concealed beneath his ceremonial attire. Elena subtly touched his wrist, a warning. Making their security concerns obvious would only confirm the fears already evident in the compound eyes and sensory appendages tracking their every movement. "The humans have arrived," announced the station's AI in 63 languages simultaneously. "Please maintain appropriate biological safety distances." Elena noted how the floor beneath them subtly reinforced itself, micro-machines strengthening the structure to accommodate what the Council clearly assumed was crushing Earth-evolved density. An unnecessary precaution. Her bones had been lightened for space travel. But telling. Ambassador Chen, the Council Premier, approached, a towering crystalline being whose internal facets refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. "The Galactic Union welcomes Earth's first official representative." The Premier's voice resonated directly in her mind through the station's telepathic field, yet maintained a careful distance of exactly 7 meters, the recommended quarantine distance for unknown pathogens. Behind the Premier, security drones disguised as decorative orbs tracked her vital signs, their sensors calibrated specifically for human biochemistry. "Premier Stalacti, I bring greetings from Earth and its 17 colonies," Elena replied, performing the universal gesture of peaceful intent, open palms held outward, though she noted several species flinch at the exposed skin. The Council had rejected Earth's membership application 7 times over 3 centuries, despite humanity meeting all technological benchmarks. This 8th invitation had arrived unexpectedly following humanity's controversial victory in the Proxima Centauri dispute, where a human mining colony had survived an engineered radiation storm that eliminated 3 competing alien outposts. During the reception that followed, Elena navigated the careful dance of first contact protocols, acutely aware of how conversations halted when she approached. The universal translators embedded in the station's architecture weren't designed to be circumvented, but Elena's neural implant, technology humanity had concealed from Council assessment, easily slipped past the standard encryptions, genetic containment protocols in place. She caught fragments from a huddle of Council security representatives, their exoskeletons polished to ceremonial sheen. "Failsafe options should biological contamination occur," responded a floating gelatinous being. "Better containment than exclusion at this stage," a Bictal-feathered diplomat countered. "What if they discover the progenitor protocol?" This last question, whispered by a species Elena couldn't identify through the crowd, sent a chill through her that had nothing to do with the station's carefully regulated temperature. Elena sipped her specially prepared human-compatible beverage, noticing it had been synthesized rather than risk contamination from shared ingredients, and made a decision. Whatever game the Council was playing, humanity hadn't been invited as equals. They'd been summoned for evaluation, or containment, and the Galactic Council was terrified of what they might have unleashed. The Grand Chamber took Elena's breath away, not with beauty but with sheer scale. Carved from a single captured asteroid, the amphitheater stretched nearly a kilometer across, its walls embedded with technology so advanced it appeared as natural formations of crystal and living metal. 200 distinct species occupied tiered sections arranged by atmospheric requirements and gravitational preferences, some suspended in specialized containment fields, others submerged in bubbling nutrient baths. Alina's footsteps echoed as she approached the central speaking platform. She felt thousands of alien gazes tracking her movement, some curious, most wary, many openly hostile. The neural implant behind her ear delivered a steady stream of diplomatic data, identifying key species and their voting histories on human-related matters. Humanity formally requests full council membership, Alina began, her voice amplified, and translated into myriad languages, dialects, and non-verbal communication forms. Earth and its colonies have achieved the requisite technological, sustainability, and governance benchmarks as outlined in the Galactic Charter, section. We challenge the human claim of peaceful intent, interrupted the Vorax ambassador, his insectoid mandibles clicking in agitation. Without warning, the chamber's holographic system activated, projecting a scene that made Alina's stomach tighten. Uncensored footage appeared above the assembly. A human mining colony on Ta Cte. 6 years earlier, a catastrophic containment breach had flooded a multi-species mining complex with cyanide-based compounds. The scene showed 17 human miners dragging themselves through the toxic fog, skin blistered but alive, passing the contorted bodies of their alien colleagues who had died within seconds of exposure. The chamber erupted in multilingual chaos. The humans deliberately withheld medical data, clicked the Vorax ambassador. They knew their biology could withstand toxins fatal to council species. Objection, Alina countered, struggling to maintain diplomatic composure. This tragedy was thoroughly investigated. Human survival was unexpected by all parties, including our own scientists. A Methagian delegate rose from its superheated seat, plasma-like body pulsing urgently. They endure radiation levels that would liquefy our internal organs. Their cellular structure actively repairs genetic damage that would be irreversible in any civilized species. Their skeletal systems can fracture and self-heal, added a multi-eyed representative of the silicon-based lithoids. Our exoskeletons would shatter permanently under such stress. The most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. The normally reclusive gastronomic guild, whose massive gelatinous representative vibrated with agitation. They intentionally consume compounds containing capsaicin, ethanol, caffeine, and theobromine, neurotoxins that would trigger systemic failure in most council races. They do this for pleasure. The accusation hung in the air. Humans weren't merely resilient, they were biologically aberrant. Alina watched understanding dawn across the chamber. Humanity wasn't mistrusted for aggression or technological advancement, but feared for their physiological adaptability. The council wasn't afraid of human weapons, they were afraid of human bodies. After 3 hours of contentious debate, the verdict arrived. Provisional membership granted, but with unprecedented restrictions on human movement, biological sample transport, and habitat integration. Alina was assigned a cultural liaison, an octopoid diplomat named Sorith, whose pleasant demeanor couldn't disguise the constant biometric scans emitting from his specialized suit. As they exited the chamber, Alina noticed how council staff maintained precise distances from her, their environmental suits sealed despite the shared atmosphere. Returning to her quarters that night, Alina discovered maintenance crews installing additional filtration systems in adjacent sections. Their environmental suits were rated for extreme biohazard containment. Standard procedure, they explained nervously when she confronted them. But her enhanced hearing caught their whispered conversation after they thought she'd gone. Human microbiota would devour us from inside. Billions of bacteria on their skin alone. Evolved alongside predators, can you imagine? Alina closed her door, considering the implications. The council feared humans as walking biohazards, contamination risks rather than diplomatic partners. This wasn't containment, it was quarantine. And quarantine was just the beginning. The historical archives preserve the collective memory of all council civilizations, Sorith explained, his voice melodious despite the translator. 4 of his limbs gestured expressively, while the others discreetly operated scanning equipment hidden within his ceremonial vestments. 17 billion years of galactic history. The archive entrance loomed before them, a twisting spire of memory crystal that pulsed with stored information, its fractal architecture designed to physically represent the knowledge taxonomy used by Council species. "I'm particularly interested in Earth's first contact records," Elena said innocently. "Protocol suggests I review previous diplomatic precedents." Soreth's chromatophores rippled with hesitation. "Of course, Ambassador. Though Earth's records are limited." Elena maintained a pleasant expression while her implant detected the subtle increase in security scans. 3 hovering maintenance drones had altered their cleaning patterns to maintain proximity to her location. "The public terminals are available for diplomatic use," Soreth offered, gesturing toward simplistic interfaces that Elena immediately recognized as limited access points. Council Diplomatic Statute 47B guarantees ambassadorial access to primary source material. Elena countered smoothly, citing regulations her team had studied extensively. For proper cultural integration. A silent communication passed between Soreth and hidden security personnel before he acquiesced. Briefly then, "I must attend to an urgent matter. The system will monitor your queries." The moment Soreth departed, Elena activated Commander Jackson's distraction, an urgent communication, requiring her liaison's immediate attention several levels away. 30 seconds after Soreth left, Elena retrieved a small device concealed within her diplomatic insignia, a neural bypass chip, humanity's most closely guarded technology. The chip interfaced directly with her implant, projecting a targeted electromagnetic field that created a momentary blind spot in archive security. Standard cyber warfare would trigger alarms instantly, but this technology operated on principles the Council had never encountered. Direct neural-to-system communication that their firewalls weren't designed to detect. The archive's true interface materialized before her, a crystalline latticework of data so complex it made her eyes water. Her neural implant translated the structures into comprehensible patterns, revealing the true scope of Council knowledge. Elena navigated to Earth's stellar sector, expecting minimal records. Instead, she discovered a data structure so vast it rivaled major Council homeworlds. More disturbing, the earliest entries dated back 2.7 million years, far beyond humanity's own historical understanding of their evolution. Deeper exploration revealed references to the Crucible Planet Initiative, with Earth designated as Test Case 319, and appalling terminology. Unexpected persistence of test subjects following Extinction Event 42, and anomalous cognitive development despite reduced environmental stability. The most disturbing entry appeared in files dated approximately 75,000 years ago. Human population bottleneck achieved. Projected extinction probability, 86.7%. Monitoring continued. Elena's blood ran cold as understanding dawned. The Toba catastrophe, the supervolcano eruption that human scientists believed had reduced the entire human population to mere thousands, had been deliberately engineered. Before she could download more, the archive interface flickered. Security protocols were cycling, about to detect her intrusion. Elena withdrew the neural chip and reverted the system to standard access mode, her mind racing with implications. Using maintenance access routes memorized from station schematics, Elena returned to her quarters through circuitous paths, avoiding security checkpoints. Inside her room, she immediately noticed the difference. Everything was precisely as she'd left it, yet subtly wrong. Her belongings sat exactly 3.2 millimeters from their original positions, perfect enough to seem untouched to normal perception, but glaring to her enhanced senses. A thorough sweep for surveillance devices revealed nothing, yet Elena knew they'd been searching for something specific. On her bed sat an object impossible to overlook, a tiny crystalline data structure balanced impossibly on its tip, defying the station's gravity regulations. The technology was beyond even council capabilities, and the embedded message appeared in ancient human Sanskrit. The hunters fear what they cannot tame. The Garden Dome. Third cycle. Come alone. Most disturbing was the signature, her own genetic identification code, but with subtle markers suggesting it originated decades in her future. Elena secured the crystal in a diplomatic pouch, her certainty growing that the Council's fear of humanity stemmed from something far more profound than biological incompatibility. They feared what humans might discover about their own origins. The Garden Dome sprawled across an entire section of the station, a meticulously crafted biosphere containing specimens from 10,000 worlds. Elena followed the data crystal's embedded directions, her diplomatic credentials bypassing 3 security checkpoints. The air grew thick with alien spores and humidity as she ventured deeper into rarely accessed sections. A grove of bioluminescent trees pulsed with soft indigo light, their twisting branches creating natural privacy screens against surveillance. Elena activated a signal scrambler disguised as a ceremonial bracelet, standard diplomatic protection against eavesdropping, but modified by Earth's Covert Ops Division to create a more expansive dead zone. You came alone. Good. The voice emerged from shadow, speaking perfect Earth standard without translation lag. 3 figures materialized from within the grove's shifting patterns of light and shadow. The first, Kalarath, belonged to a species Elena had only seen in historical records, rail-thin with translucent skin stretched over an elongated skeleton, eyes adapted for darkness. The archivists were believed extinct following the neutron wars a millennium ago. The second figure defied conventional description, a hovering construct of interlocking geometric shapes that seemed to exist partially in adjacent dimensions, its surface rippling with calculations expressed as mathematical symbols. Temporal observer, it introduced itself, its voice emerging from precisely modulated vibrations in the air rather than any discernible speaker. Probability nexus specialist. But it was the third figure that froze Elena's breath in her lungs. Undeniably human, yet subtly wrong. Broader brow ridge, more pronounced musculature, standing with a predatory alertness that made Commander Jackson seem relaxed by comparison. His dark skin bore intricate scarification patterns depicting astronomical alignments Elena recognized from Earth's most ancient archaeological sites. Adam, 143rd generation survivor of the first culling. He introduced himself with an accent that resonated with no known human language. Your ancestral line and mine diverged approximately 40,000 years ago, Ambassador. Impossible, Elena whispered. There was no human civilization then. Not one that survived in your historical record, Adam corrected. The Council has been more thorough in subsequent cleansings. Kalarath's skeletal fingers manipulated the air, summoning a holographic timeline that encompassed millions of years. Earth was not merely observed, Ambassador Chen. It was engineered as the most hostile evolutionary crucible ever created. The timeline highlighted extinction events spanning Earth's history, asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, ice ages, and pandemic diseases, each labeled with clinical precision. What Council records classify as natural disasters were deliberate extinction tests, the temporal observer explained, its forms shifting to display probability calculations. The Shapers seeded thousands of worlds with life, each designed to develop specific traits. Most planets saw their dominant species replaced hundreds of times when they failed to adapt quickly enough. Dinosaurs were considered remarkably successful, Kalarath noted. They survived 165 million years of escalating challenges before the Shapers eliminated them to clear ecological space for mammalian test subjects. Adam's expression hardened. Homo sapiens was merely the final iteration of hominid tests. Earlier versions were stronger, faster, even more intelligent in specific domains. But we alone develop your particular adaptability. The capacity to form social bonds strong enough to overcome environmental challenges while maintaining cognitive flexibility. The temporal observer projected images of early humans improbably surviving cataclysms, adapting to dramatically shifting climates and environmental pressures that had eliminated countless other species. Your adaptability exceeds all projected parameters by orders of magnitude, it stated. The Council has been attempting to exterminate humanity for over 2 million years. Your continued existence defies their every model. Elena struggled to process the revelation. If they wanted us extinct, why not simply destroy Earth completely? Because you weren't the only success they fear, Adam answered as station alarms suddenly blared to life. And your planet contains evidence of their greatest crime. Security forces converged on their location. Someone had discovered their meeting. Clareth pressed a living memory crystal into Elena's hand. Find the other test subjects. You weren't the only success. As security drones swarmed the garden, the temporal observer manipulated space-time itself, creating a transit portal directly into the restricted council chamber. Confront them now, while they're vulnerable, it instructed. The timing must be precise. Adam engaged the security forces with movements too fluid for any human Elena had ever seen, his modifications evident in every strike. He nodded once to Elena, a gesture spanning 40,000 years of separated human evolution. Remember what makes us unique, cousin, he called as Elena stepped through the portal. Not our strength, but our refusal to break. Elena materialized in the center of the inner council chamber, the portal collapsing behind her with a thunderclap of displaced air. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy recoiled in shock, personal shields snapping into existence around their varied forms. Security protocols activated instantly, but the chamber's automated defenses froze in confusion, her diplomatic credentials registered as both present and in her quarters simultaneously. What is the meaning of this intrusion? Demanded the Vorax representative, mandibles clicking in agitation. The truth, Elena replied, her voice steady despite the gravity manipulation fields activating around her. For 2 million years, you've been playing gods. Before security overrides could activate, Elena plugged the memory crystal into the chamber's central interface. Clareth's modifications bypassed the system's safeguards, commandeering the projection network. The evidence from the archives, along with data even she hadn't yet seen, cascaded across every screen and holographic display in the chamber, broadcasting simultaneously across all council communication channels. Containment breach in progress, reported an automated system. Unauthorized data dissemination to 34,271 nodes and counting. The Methagian counselor's plasma form flared in panic. Terminate all outbound transmissions. Too late, Elena said. The truth about Earth, about humanity, is being transmitted to every council world. Your experiments, your manipulation of our evolution, your deliberate extinction events. The council representatives exchanged glances with a synchronicity that suggested telepathic communication. Several began activating emergency protocols until Premier Zexitlik, the eldest member of the ethereal species, made an unprecedented gesture. The gaseous being dissolved its containment suit entirely, exposing its vulnerable essence to the chamber's atmosphere. The ultimate sign of submission in council diplomacy. You cannot comprehend the necessity. The Premier's vaporous form pulsed with voice analog patterns. The galaxy faced extinction. We needed weapons. The chamber fell silent as the horrifying confession unfolded. The Premier's essence expanded, interfacing directly with the room's projectors to display ancient records predating the Council itself. Catastrophic destruction on a scale Elena could barely comprehend. Entire star systems collapsed, reality itself warped beyond recognition. 10 million years ago, they emerged from beyond the galactic barrier, the Premier explained. The Void Heralds, they did not simply destroy. They rewrote fundamental laws of physics in conquered regions, rendering them uninhabitable to carbon-based life. Images showed council species falling by the trillions, their civilizations erased not just physically but causally, excised from the timeline itself. After they mysteriously retreated, The survivors formed the first council and established the Shapers, our greatest scientists and reality engineers. Their mandate: create species capable of withstanding reality-altering attacks. By subjecting them to endless suffering, Elena countered, her voice tight with controlled fury. By engineering catastrophes that killed billions. A council scientist, a crystalline being of pure logic, stepped forward. The Crucible Planet program included thousands of test worlds. Most failed completely. Those that showed promise received accelerated evolutionary pressures. You mean deliberate extinction events, Elena corrected. Your world showed unprecedented results, continued the scientist, multifaceted body refracting light as it gestured toward data comparing human adaptability with other species. Your immune systems reprogram against any pathogen. Your bodies repair damage fatal to other sentients. Your neural networks form patterns we cannot predict. But most concerning, you find unity in adversity where other species fragment. Elena processed this betrayal, the weight of 2 million years of manipulation. So the wars, the trade disruptions, the technological sabotage, necessary interventions, the Premier admitted, your advancement exceeded all models. Some council factions advocated for Earth's complete sterilization, fearing what humanity might become unchecked. The chamber shuddered violently. Emergency systems flashed crimson warnings as the station's inertial dampeners struggled to compensate for a massive gravitational distortion. On the main view screen, a terrifying sight materialized. A quantum rupture tearing open at the edge of council space, its impossible geometries distorting surrounding starlight. Through it emerged ships of inhuman design, their forms bending reality around them like ripples in fabric. They've returned, whispered the Premier, its gaseous form paling to near transparency. The Void Heralds. After all our preparation, we need more time. The implication hung in the chamber like a physical presence. After millions of years of cruel experiments to create the perfect adaptable species, the Council had sabotaged their own best hope out of fear. And now they faced extinction. Bedlam erupted across the station as refugees from the outer rim systems poured in, their vessels crammed with survivors bearing witness to horrors beyond conventional understanding. The council chambers transformed into a crisis center, holographic displays tracking the rapid progression of the Void Herald advance. 3 worlds had gone silent in the 6 hours since the quantum rupture appeared. They're moving faster than historical records indicated, observed a senior tactical advisor, their arthropod limbs manipulating the display to show the strategic situation. At current velocity, they'll reach core council worlds in 17 days. The refugee testimonies painted a consistent, terrifying picture. The heralds didn't simply destroy. They fundamentally altered the underlying fabric of reality. Matter behaved according to different laws in conquered regions, rendering them uninhabitable to carbon-based life. Council defenses, built on predictable scientific principles, failed catastrophically against weapons that selectively changed how atoms interacted. Elena observed the growing panic from a side chamber, where she'd been sequestered with Premier Zextlich and 5 senior council scientists. The Premier's gaseous form had diminished significantly, a sign of extreme stress in ethereal physiology. You knew they would return, Elena said, not a question but an accusation. That's why Earth was so important to you. We expected decades more preparation time, admitted the Premier. The Shapers calculated a 97.3% probability of Herald reemergence between 2150 and 2200 by your calendar. A holographic simulation displayed the strategic situation. Council forces mobilizing, evacuation protocols activating across thousands of worlds, defensive grids powering up. All insufficient against an enemy that could simply rewrite the rules of engagement. Our weapons aren't designed to combat fundamental reality distortion, explained a Quantech scientist, their crystalline form fracturing slightly from stress. It's like fighting entropy itself. The station shuddered as emergency alerts blared. A Void Herald Vanguard ship had been detected approaching the Council station itself, having bypassed all outer defense grids. Weapons fire from Council vessels passed harmlessly through its shifting structure. "Impossible," whispered the tactical advisor. "No vessel could traverse that distance in." "They don't experience space-time linearly," interrupted the Premier. "Distances, negotiable for them." Elena watched the Void Herald ship on tactical displays, an impossible geometric structure that seemed to fold through higher dimensions, phasing through conventional matter as if it didn't exist. Council weapons proved useless as the vessel materialized inside the station's defensive perimeter. Chaos erupted throughout the station as environmental systems failed in sequence. Gravity fluctuated wildly in affected sections. Matter itself began behaving unpredictably, solid bulkheads becoming permeable, atmosphere solidifying in crystalline patterns. In the midst of the confusion, Elena made a startling discovery. Soreth, her assigned liaison, was fighting to evacuate Council civilians from damaged sections. But his movements betrayed him, displaying reflexes and adaptability no normal Council species should possess. When a section bulkhead began to crystallize, threatening to trap escaping refugees, Soreth reacted with impossible speed, physically tearing through the transforming material with bare tentacles that briefly shifted to reveal a different underlying structure. "You're one of them," Elena realized, aiding him in guiding terrified civilians toward functioning escape pods. Another crucible species. Soreth's chromatophores rippled in patterns expressing complex emotion. "We are few, but like you, we survived our trials," he admitted, helping an injured Mythagian to safety. "The Frex were thought exterminated after our rebellion 10,000 years ago. Those of us who survived have hidden among the Council for millennia, watching and waiting." "For what?" "For others like us," Soreth replied, his limbs briefly revealing their true musculature. The Council feared an alliance between adaptive species more than the Herald's return. Another violent tremor rocked the station as environmental systems began cascading toward catastrophic failure. Soreth's communicator chirped with an emergency signal. "The Council evacuation has begun," he informed Elena. "But their defensive protocols are failing against Herald incursion." Elena faced an impossible choice: attempt to save the very Council that had engineered human suffering for millennia, or focus solely on human survival, abandoning billions of innocent beings to a reality-warping enemy. Her decision would reveal whether the Council's deepest fear about humanity, or their greatest hope, was justified. Elena's quantum communicator activated, establishing a direct link to Earth, despite the impossibility of instant communication across such distances. Commander Jackson's face appeared in the holographic display, his expression grim as the station shuddered around her. "Ambassador, we're receiving fragmented distress signals from across Council space. The Joint Chiefs are awaiting your assessment." Elena made her decision. "Connect me to the Emergency Response Directorate." Moments later, she addressed Earth's leadership, not with accusations of millennia of manipulation, but with a request for immediate intervention. The response came within minutes. Humanity would stand with the galaxy that had tried to contain them. "The prototype quantum battlecruiser Prometheus has been activated," Jackson informed her. "Estimated arrival in 4 hours." "Impossible," Soreth interjected, multiple eyes widening. "No vessel could cross that distance in less than 12 days." "We've been keeping a few advances to ourselves," Elena replied. 4 hours later, as Council evacuation descended into chaos, a ripple in space-time heralded the arrival of the Prometheus, a vessel nearly twice the size of any known human military ship, its hull composed of materials the Council's sensors couldn't properly analyze. Commander Jackson, now revealed as the head of Earth's Advanced Warfare Division, strode into the Emergency Command Center with a contingent of human specialists whose neural implants and physiological modifications had been concealed from Council assessment. "How?" demanded a Council scientist, staring at sensor readings. "This vessel's capabilities exceed any known propulsion theory. While you built your science on consistency, Jackson explained, we built ours on adaptation. Human scientists, their brains evolved through countless catastrophes to identify patterns in chaos, quickly determined the Void Heralds weren't changing physics. They were exploiting existing quantum loopholes the Council had never discovered. What seemed like reality alteration was actually selective phase shifting between parallel probability states. They're not rewriting the rules, explained Dr. Lakshmi Sen, her neural enhancements visibly processing data faster than any unmodified human could. They're choosing which pre-existing rules apply in a given space. Human military strategists, descendants of survivors who had endured everything from ice ages to nuclear conflicts, devised counterattacks using Council technology in ways their creators had never imagined. The true breakthrough came when Alina brought together representatives from the other surviving Crucible species, beings who had hidden their true nature for millennia. Each brought unique evolutionary advantages. Sorith's people, the Frex, could perceive quantum probability states directly. The Vishnu Collective could process 11 dimensions simultaneously. The Lazarus Swarm could reconstruct themselves from mere genetic traces. The Promethean synthesists could incorporate foreign technologies directly into their biological systems. When Council leadership hesitated to adopt such radical defense strategies, fearing loss of control more than extinction, Alina delivered an ultimatum: work with us as equals or we'll proceed alone. Several fringe Council species, those who had suffered their own histories of manipulation, broke ranks to ally with the Crucible survivors. The Methagians, whose plasma-based biology made them particularly vulnerable to Herald attacks, were the first to pledge their resources. The turning point came during a desperate battle near the Council homeworlds. When conventional tactics failed against a massive Herald worldship, Alina proposed a strategy so audacious it bordered on suicidal. A joint human-Vishnu strike team would allow themselves to be captured. Their reality manipulation has a pattern, Alina explained to the skeptical Council. A frequency we can potentially disrupt, but only from inside their field. Using their complementary adaptations, human physiological resilience, and Vishnu multidimensional perception, the strike team infiltrated the Herald worldship. What they discovered inside defied conventional understanding. The Heralds weren't invaders in the traditional sense, but manifestations of higher dimensional physics attempting to correct what they perceived as anomalies in base reality. The strike team identified the Herald's central vulnerability. Their reality distortions required constant energy expenditure to maintain separation between probability states. They couldn't maintain these distortions in the presence of specific quantum resonance patterns, patterns that human minds, evolved through millions of years of adapting to catastrophe, could intuitively generate. As the strike team broadcast this resonance outward, massive Herald constructs began to collapse, their impossible geometries unwinding like cosmic knots coming undone. The Council observed in awe and terror as their greatest fear was realized. Humanity, and the other Crucible species working in concert, achieved in days what the Council couldn't accomplish in millions of years. But instead of the subjugation they expected, they witnessed these adaptable species fighting to protect even worlds that had supported their containment. "We don't fight to conquer," Alina told the astonished Premier as the tide began to turn. "We fight to survive, and to ensure others survive with us." That's the adaptation you never understood. 3 months after the Void Herald's first assault, their forces retreated beyond the galactic barrier, leaving behind transformed regions of space where reality remained permanently altered. These phase-shifted zones, uninhabitable to most Council species, pulsed with exotic energy patterns that defied conventional analysis. The Grand Council chamber, partially rebuilt using materials salvaged from Herald debris, hosted representatives from all surviving worlds. Energy fields accommodated species from methane breathers to sentient plasma forms. At the center stood Alina Chen, now leading the unified delegation of all known Crucible survivors. For eons, the Council valued stability above all else. She addressed the assembly, her voice carrying to thousands of worlds via quantum transmission. That era ends today. Behind her stood representatives from 6 previously hidden crucible species, their true forms revealed for the first time in millennia. Zorith and the octopoid Frex, the crystalline Vishnu collective, the biomechanical Lazarus swarm, the phase-shifting Promethean synthesists, the dimension-perceiving Mnemosyne, and Adam representing a divergent branch of humanity. The crucible species weren't accidents or mistakes. Alina continued. We were possibilities, different evolutionary answers to the same fundamental question. How does life persist when reality itself becomes hostile? The proposal before the Council wasn't merely to change leadership but to transform the galactic civilization's fundamental structure. The Galactic Council would become the adaptive concord, where species would be valued not for their longevity or consistency, but for their contributions to collective resilience. We will establish adaptation institutes on every world, Alina explained as holographic models displayed new architectural and social frameworks. Cross-species research will focus not on weapons or control, but on collaborative survival strategies. After intense debate and unprecedented votes where traditional power blocks fractured along new lines, the proposal passed. The former crucible species assumed leadership positions not as conquerors, but as guides for a new era of galactic cooperation. Former enemies found themselves working alongside each other, united by shared vulnerability. The former Premier Zix, now serving as historical advisor, requested a private meeting with Alina in the station's newly constructed observatory. The vast window looked out on a region where herald alterations had left space itself refractionated, splitting starlight into impossible spectra. There is a question you never asked. The Aetherial's gaseous form swirled contemplatively. Why did the Void Heralds retreat after their first invasion? What stopped them before humanity existed? Alina had wondered this since learning of the ancient conflict. I assumed earlier council species found some weapon or defense. We found only ruins and fragments of records, Zix admitted. Our ancestors discovered no evidence of a decisive battle or technological solution. The heralds simply withdrew. And now they're retreating again, Alina observed. Not because we defeated them, but because we adapted to them. A new theory crystallized between them. Perhaps the Void Heralds weren't conquerors at all, but a form of cosmic test, pushing life to evolve beyond its limitations. Perhaps the Council, in their desperate attempt to create weapons, had inadvertently fulfilled the Herald's purpose. From the observatory, Alina watched vessels from a dozen species working in concert to reclaim a phase-shifted space station. Humans worked alongside beings of pure energy. Crystalline intelligences collaborated with hive minds, all employing techniques developed through their unique evolutionary paths. We're establishing the first settlement in Herald-altered space next month, Alina told the former premier. Volunteers from all crucible species. We're calling it Convergence. You still believe they'll return one day? Zix observed. Not a question. I'm counting on it, Alina replied, watching the human Vishnu engineering team successfully restore standard physics to a small section of altered space. Next time, we won't just survive their test. We'll surpass it. As Zix departed, Alina's quantum communicator received a high-priority signal from the Deep Space Monitoring Array established in the altered regions. The message originated from beyond the galactic barrier, transmitted in a language older than any council record, but one the human xenolinguists had immediately recognized from archaeological sites on Earth. It contained only 5 words. The crucible has yielded steel. Alina smiled, understanding at last. Humanity hadn't been created as weapons against the Heralds. They and all the crucible species had been forged to become something entirely new. Inheritors of a universe where adaptation itself was the highest form of intelligence. The galaxy's greatest threat had been its greatest teacher all along.